Hi, this is Val Campbell, and I want to welcome you to the First Chapter podcast. Today we're going to meet a new author. So without any further delay, let's jump right into it.
Can lead to a lot of misunderstanding. For example, I'm in a online writer critique group right now, and the books I write are about grief, and it gets heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I split up the first chapter into 3 chapters. The third chapter is kind of where they find out that the boy dies. And I was told, wow, you need to lighten this up. And it's like, no, that's not the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So especially because that is what the kids need to see, that all of a sudden, this one boy who was a twin has to deal with now. So same way with Joy Overcame Sorrow in chapter 2. See, you asked me chapter 1, so I sent you chapter 1. But
You
chapter
can send me
2,
anything you want.
yeah,
You can change it.
that's okay. No, go ahead. Because there's a life before grief and a life after grief. So my goal is to help children be able to navigate through their grief so they can embrace joy. They can embrace the hope, and understand that the reason why they're feeling so bad and so intense is because of love. But they're not going to lose the love of their loved one, or they're not going to lose the love they have for them. But they do have to navigate grief. They do have to work through it. And it's hard work.
I
So,
never really thought about it from that perspective. You've got the life before grief, you've got the life after grief, but you've also got the life during grief.
right.
That they have to figure out how to navigate that. How do I deal with the intensity of these feelings, especially vulnerable, because these are kids. They don't have the perspective that adults do. And I think a lot of times their parents are going through their own grief. How do
Exactly.
you help the kid? You haven't figured out how to deal with yours. And sometimes, as I'm usurping you a little bit, but sometimes that's the problem, because the parents aren't helping the kid because they're still fighting theirs.
Well, everybody in the family grieves differently. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there might be some similarities because they're all grieving the same person, but that relationship of who that person was to them is different. So, kind of like, can I talk about kind of like what the table of contents, because it hits on some of the issues.
This is your show. You talk about anything you want.
Okay, so what I sent to you was the carefree, so that we get to know Joy and her best friend Bella right at the beginning. She's very carefree. She's kind of like a daredevil. Yes, they finally get to ride to the park on their own without parents. Okay. And then by the time they get home, they see a police car coming out. So the second chapter is about bad news. So, how do you write this and have the child express different emotions?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she already had like a gut punch, when she saw the police car. She doesn't know what it means, but she doesn't think it's good anymore. So, and then we talk about chapter 3, casseroles and condolences. This is how our community grieves, but bugs it bugs Joy. She calls them the invaders because they keep ringing the doorbell or calling on the phone. Then we talk about the funeral, where the pastor is talking about how do we know there is a heaven? And so he says there are witnesses, and it's written in the Word of God. And so he shares about Abraham and Hagar and all of these situations. Now, Joy is taking it in, but she's so focused right now on her daddy is gone. She sees a picture of him in front of the casket, and she says, I do believe there's a heaven, but I wish it wasn't only in heaven that I could see my dad
Mm-hmm.
again. Um, Then we have to talk about all the future losses, all the never wills. Nothing will ever be the same is another chapter. And then she finally gets to a point where she's far enough in her grief that she finally says, Mom, I need to talk to somebody. I have questions about questions for God. So she takes her back to her pastor, and her pastor talks her through. Then it's time to go back to school. She's given a very insightful teacher who understands that sometimes grief work is more important than a math lesson. And so she relays that to Joy. Then we talk about sympathy, empathy, and envy. Now, this is the best friend, Bella. Bella is sorry that Joy lost her dad, but Bella doesn't have understanding about what that means to Joy. So Joy puts her off. She withdraws. She won't go over to her house because Bella's dad is still there. So they get together for chocolate chip cookies because the mom initiates it. And then they go to her room, which is typical. What do you want to do? And so she's asking all these things, would you like to do this? And Joy says, no. Would you like to do this? No. And then finally Bella gets frustrated. Now, Bella's sweet and loving, but she's lost her patience because she's missing her friend. And she says, Joy, you never want to do anything. Da, 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 da. And the mom comes in. So mom takes Bella, talks to her in the kitchen table, tells Joy to stay in her room. She'll come back and talk to her. And Joy listens out, opens up her door so she can listen to what she's saying to Bella. And she basically is trying to ask Bella, do you know what the difference is between sympathy and empathy? And she doesn't. And so she says, well, I know you feel sorry for Joy because she lost her dad, right? Yeah. She goes, that's sympathy. But what Joy needs from her very best friend is not just to get involved in a bunch of activities. Sometimes Joy needs to just be by herself. And sometimes her best friend just needs to sit with her. And so then Bella's all excited because now she knows what she could do to help Joy. So she goes home, and then mom goes into the bedroom, and she talks about, Joy, I think we got a problem with envy. And then Joy's like, what? Because, well, I think you are, you're a little confused because Bella still has a dad. And that's why you don't want to go over there. So then she shares the Bible story. Remember the two women with babies? And they lived together, and one of them rolled over on the baby, and that baby died. And then they brought the one baby in front of King Solomon and say, we need you to determine who is the mother. And King Solomon, in his wisdom, even though it sounded brutal, was to cut the baby in half. Well, the one mother that had rolled over on hers, knowing it wasn't her baby, said, go ahead. And the other mother, who loved her child, said, no, give her the child. And that's when King Solomon knew who the real mother was. So even though that was kind of a brutal illustration, that is the one that God gave me to share. And then Bella got it. She said, is that how I've been treating Bella? And she's like, yeah. She goes, I think I need to give Bella a call. So, okay. So then we talk about forgetting. After a point, they start thinking, I can't remember the voice. I can't remember, him smiling at me, so kids are worried about forgetting. And then you go into Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of these traditions. How do you keep them, and keep your loved one as part of them? How do you celebrate birthdays? When laughter returns is another chapter. Shared sorrow. She's asked, because at the end of the school year, they have summer. And just before the next school year, the principal wants to talk to Joy and her mother. And Joy and her mother go to the meeting. And the principal says, I would like Joy to work with our school counselor to have a, like a grief loss support group with other kids who have lost loved ones. And so, that's kind of an honor and shared sorrow.
How did you have Joy deal with that?
Well, she had done a lot of hard work, and
Mhm.
she'd even written a poem about her dad with one of her never wills. Um, so here's the poem she wrote for her dad. You taught me to dance with patience and grace. Your hands are in mine and your smiling face. Though you're not here, you'll always stay. My sunshine, my laughter, my bright cloudy day. Dad, I would really love another chance to be your partner in the father-daughter dance. I miss you more than words can say. I understand. I'll see you again someday. You taught me so much. I miss the bare hugs and your gentle touch. I learned your lessons well. When I have children, funny stories of you I will tell. Mom and I can smile and laugh again, sending kisses and hugs to heaven until we meet again. Your girl, Joy Carter.
Very cool.
So in the meantime, her cousin April has given her a red journal. That's why this is red.
Mhm.
Has given her a red journal when they go to the funeral. This is so you can write down all the good words that people say about your dad during the funeral, or the reception afterwards. So Joy started using her journal to help process her feelings as well. And so we close out the book. She says, and this is also part of the book trailer. I don't know if I sent you the book trailer or not. Um, Mrs. Thornsberry was right. Grief is hard work. I know I'm not done grieving, just like I'll never be done loving Dad. But the sorrow is fading. Grief changes you, but teaches you how to help others who have felt the same loss. It's not the end, it's a new beginning. Slowly, my sadness is turning into peace, contentment, and even joy again. I believe life goes on after death. I believe there's a heaven, and we'll see the ones we love again someday. That belief gives me hope, and I want to share that hope with others who are grieving. At the bottom of the page, I sign my name in my neatest handwriting, Joy Marie Carter. Then I closed the journal. After a moment, I had an idea. I reopened the front cover and wrote on the title page in bold, confident letters, To Dad. This is how joy overcame sorrow. I closed the journal again, hugged it to my chest, and smiled. It felt like I had created something special, a way to keep Dad close and share his love with others, just as he would have wanted.
Very cool. That is awesome.
So the journal is kind of like I take one book prompt from every chapter and put it in the journal so that the children, as they're processing the book, they can write down based on Joy's experience. Then they're given some new prompts that are more personalized for them. You know, basically like, how did you feel after you got the bad news? How did you feel, at the funeral, or, whatever the questions that are in here. So I want it, as a teacher and a person who has experienced grief, I wanted them to have both resources, for parents, for anybody who is a helper for children, counselors, chaplains, pastors, teachers, obviously. I wanted them to have a resource so that they could say, hey, family, you're right. Mom is experiencing grief differently than the child. How can mom help the child? These two resources, I believe.
Jerry, I want to thank you so much for having the courage to write those out of your experience and out of service to others. And I will share with you that I believe you've made me a better writer because I've shared with you that I have a book that is calling me, or a short story to call and finish in the direction that, and I am a person of faith. I say so unapologetically. I believe that God put us together for a reason, because it was not too long after this came up that this story pleaded with me to finish it. And I realized the direction that it was going, which was totally different from the initial conversation or the initial plot lines. And
I
so
understand that call.
I appreciate that from you. And let's just see how many people that we can promote this with and help, because I think this is an outstanding piece of work.
Thank you. So far, I've won 2 awards, a Chris Litt Award and the International Impact Book Awards. And I'm still sending the book out,
Sure.
to try to expand my audience.
Where is your book available? Because there are going to be people who want it.
Okay, you can find all my books on Amazon. And then Joy Overcame Sorrow can also be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and Walmart.com. I also think you can find it at Hope Books Publishing as well. And I have a website, drjerrylwoodbridge.com, is where they can watch other podcasts, because I put the links up, or see other resources in my blog. So, and that lists all my books.
I will put some titles across the bottom here so that people can see those addresses and links and things.
Very good.
Anything else that you want to share with us as we close this out? Because I want to be respectful of your time. I think I could sit here and talk to you all day. You and I,
likewise.
You and I have a lot of sympathetic spirit here, and I'm sure if we talked long enough, we'd probably get into dissension. But that's all right. Anything else that you want to share with our audience as we're closing the door here?
I'm just looking for opportunities to speak at events, or opportunities to, possibly sell my books. I'm just kind of open, and I'm hoping and praying that I make the right connection where Joy Overcomes Sorrow becomes a film.
Jerry, that was a wonderful, wonderful interview. And I'm so inspired by your book, and the name of which is Joy Overcame Sorrow. And it's I had just so much fun with this. And of course, that book is available all the popular places, Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble and Walmart.com. And if anybody has any questions or interest in discussing children grieving and how to help them through that process, you can get a hold of Dr. Woodbridge at www.drjerrylwoodbridge.com, and that's DRJERRY, drjerrylwoodbridge.com. So we're going to take just a few minutes here, and we're going to have an enjoyable time listening to Dr. Woodbridge read from her book.
Chapter 1, Carefree. The back door slammed. I could sense Mom was watching me as I grabbed my bike and placed my helmet on my head. When I turned my bike around, I saw Mom waving and smiling at me through the kitchen window. I could hear her talking and giggling on the phone with her best friend, Billy. I waved back at my overprotective mom. Yes, I shouted, running full speed from the backyard, gripping the handlebars of my bike so tightly my hands felt glued. Today was our first ride to the park without any parents. It took forever to convince Mom, but she finally said yes. Bella was already waiting for me, perched on her bike with her butterfly helmet strapped snugly under her chin. Come on, Joy, she called. We only have an hour. We knew we had to pedal away fast before our moms changed their minds. My heart raced as I jumped on my bike and rode down the street. It was one of those perfect summer days in upstate New York. The sun was blazing, birds were singing, and there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. It was just us, our bikes, and all the freedom in the world. No school, no homework, no bedtime, I shouted as we sped along. Just freedom! We huffed and puffed as we climbed the big hill. Sweat dripped down my face, but I knew the best part was coming. At the top, I leaned forward and let gravity take over, feeling the cool breeze whoosh past my face. My brand new pink, purple, and silver streamers fluttered wildly in the wind. My freshly cut auburn hair whipped around too, and I couldn't stop laughing. Woohoo! I screamed, letting go of the handlebars for a second. Coming up behind me, Bella shook her head and yelled, "You're such a daredevil, Joy. If your mom saw that, we'd be stuck riding in the backyard forever." She was probably right, but I didn't care. We were free. We zigzagged between parked cars, people walking their dogs, and joggers when we got to the park. The park was alive with families having picnics in the gazebos, and the smell of hot dogs and burgers were making my stomach growl. Over by the soccer field, parents were cheering or yelling while a referee blew his whistle. Teens were shooting hoops on the basketball court, and the background is packed with kids running and screaming in tag games. Bella and I stopped for a break after one lap around the park. We watched some little kids in the jungle gym, their moms chatting nearby. Three tiny kids scrambled up the bars while others hid in the treehouse. "Bella," I said, pointing out to the jungle gym, "can you believe we were that little once? I think that's where we met, isn't it?" Bella nodded with a grin. "Yep, best friends ever since." She turned her bike toward the street, her eyes fixed on the big building across the park. I didn't even have to ask what she was staring at. "Hey," I said, "maybe next time we can ask our moms if we can go to the butterfly garden." "Yes, yes, yes, yes," Bella squealed, practically jumping off her bike. She was obsessed with butterflies. Her room had butterfly curtains, a bedspread, a butterfly lamp, and she'd read every book about butterflies at the library. I liked butterflies, but dragonflies were more my thing. I played with the dragonfly charm on my necklace while Bella went on about how amazing it would be to visit the butterfly garden. When we decided to head home, we were soaked with sweat, our t shirts sticking to our backs. Even with the wind, it was a long, sticky ride. We pedaled toward home, thinking about ice cold glasses of Kool Aid waiting for us. It was the best day ever. As we approached our neighborhood, something weird stopped me in my tracks. A police car was parked just one block from our houses. Bella and I slowed down, our bikes squeaking as we rolled forward. Two officers came out of the house. They looked serious. My stomach did a flip, but when I looked again, I froze. "Wait, that's my house," I blurted out, my voice crackling. We stayed utterly still, watching the officers head toward their car. Their faces were tight and sad. The window was down, so we accidentally overheard one of them mutter, "That is heartbreaking, man. I have a daughter her age." My brain couldn't keep up. What did that mean? What were we talking about? I glanced at Bella, throwing up my hands like, "What is going on?" The other officer nodded, but their radio crackled and a dispatcher's voice cut through, sending them off to another car. "Car 22 responding," one of the officers said. "We're 2 miles out." Bella and I stayed quiet as the police car pulled away. When it disappeared around the corner, she finally turned to me, her face pale. "Joy, why were the cops at your house?" "How would I know?" I snapped, feeling my chest get tight. It wasn't Bella's fault, but I was too freaked out to think straight. My legs moved before my brain could. I started pedaling as hard as possible, leaving Bella behind without saying goodbye. My heart pounded with every push of my feet, and my bike rattled as I tore down the street. What had happened? The sky, sunny just a little while ago, was turning gray. A cool breeze swept past me, and I shivered, not because of the weather, but because of this weird, heavy feeling that wouldn't leave me alone. When I finally got to my house, I dumped my bike in the backyard, the tires squealing as they skidded to a stop. I just stood there for a second, staring at the house, my chest tight and my breath shaky. I hope everything's all right, I thought, biting my lip. but something deep down told me this wasn't just a regular day anymore.
I'll be ordering my copy of that book this afternoon, and and as I shared with you, I found your work so inspiring that I've already started incorporating your references in your book into a book that I'm finishing up. It just happened to dovetail in as God plans these things amazingly. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and the redo here. We for everybody that knows, we ran into a little bit of technical difficulties and we had to redo this piece. So I just appreciate you being willing with your cold to come on here and help me through this. It's great.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Val.
Okay,
And yes, let's continue to work together.
we will. And if you have any of those other technical questions, audio, video, whatever, you feel free to give me a holler. I'm yours.
All
Okay.
right. Sounds
Bye.
great. Thank you.